Welcome everyone to this third webinar where we meet experts. We've talked about too long file paths and invalid characters. We talked about delta migrations. And today we're going to talk about versions. And if you want to know something about the other two topics, please look them up on our website. The webinar recordings are there. But today it's going to be about versions. Versions, I mean, it's been around for quite some time since the launch of these old enterprise content management systems, right? I've worked with them quite a lot, and it's been always a challenge, not specifically with regards to migration, but also working with them and getting some kind of process around it. Today, we're going to talk about migrations, however, and how to deal with versions in that regards. For this, with me is Kamil. Kamil, very happy that you could join and share your experience. And maybe you can introduce yourself to the audience of today.
Yeah, thank you, Shorts. My name is Kamil. I've been working at Sexilio already since 2 years as a data migration engineer. And I've had many different clients like Dutch municipalities, ministries, big organizations. And I've migrated from different old legacy systems to SharePoint Online, SharePoint Prem, Alfresco. So yeah, I quite enjoy it, and it's always a challenge and a struggle for every client to decide how to manage versions. Yeah,
right.
That's true.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about those struggles today, and we're actually gonna see a little bit of a live migration, but we'll get to that. First, versions. So one of the things, and you say I've migrated different legacy systems such as LiveLink, Documentum, OpenText, Content Server, Box, the more cloud systems. They all have a different way of dealing with versions, or at least different capabilities with regards to versions. And we migrate almost all of them into SharePoint. And SharePoint has one way of dealing with versions. So here you go. There's some challenges with regards to versions that you face when you're migrating from these different platforms.
Yeah.
So we're going to go into that, but first, versions. Maybe it's good to set the base to explain what versioning really is. Maybe you can do that as you encounter them so much in your project, just to have the same understanding of as our audience has.
Yeah, first of all, so document versioning in SharePoint specifically is the ability to track the changes of the document over time. Also, the ability to preserve the history of edits. It enables efficient collaboration on a shared environment such as SharePoint Online, and also ensures data integrity and minimizes the risks of errors of losing data, for example.
Yeah. I know that when I started working, basically, it was working with these platforms that we're now migrating away from, like OpenText Content Server or OpenText eDocs even. And versioning really was back then one of the key features, and so efficient and so much better than working on your file share or in paper, basically. Yeah, it was a big thing, and it has really a as you just explained, there are many factors that are important that it supports, right? Next, what we're gonna talk about is SharePoint Online, as we are migrating mostly to SharePoint Online. What are the things you need to think about? Are there limitations? Are there any things you need to consider?
I mean, first of all, the more data you have in SharePoint, the more costly it's going to be.
Right.
So by default, SharePoint has default limits for major versions and minor. There are respectively 500 and 511. But those limits are adjustable per site according to the client. So you can increase it or decrease it, but we will always advise to minimalize it. And if you need to migrate all of the versions that you don't need, then you should migrate into archive sites, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
And another difference between some of the legacy systems like OpenText is that you can version different file formats, and
Right.
that's not possible in SharePoint Online. So you would have to make a choice either to create a new document for that specific file format and version those versions of it, or find another solution for that. For example, put all of the versions in one folder next to the specific file that's the last version, and then work with that.
So, and if we go to the first point, so there's limitation of 500 major versions.
Yeah, and 511 of minor.
And is it then 511 minor versions per major version?
Yes.
Okay. So there's quite some.
But you could increase it if you wanted to. So.
Oh, even?
Yeah, you can increase it even more, but that will reduce the performance, of course. Depends how much data you have.
Right.
If it's a small size, then not really. But
Yeah. And I know
it's quite flexible.
I know we've encountered systems but that was then an automated versioning sequence, basically a process writing versions into it was an open text system, and it went into the thousands and thousands of versions. So these things we encounter, of course, in the analysis, but things can go crazy with versioning. And indeed, you say the different file formats. I know the example of Documentum. They call it renditions, I think. So you can render a document as a PDF or as a TIFF file or as a thumbnail, all different representations of the same document. But SharePoint, how do you deal with that? So we're gonna go into that as well.
Yeah, I think it will still evolve over time. Perhaps they'll adjust those kind of settings to at the moment not really.
Maybe, yeah. So understanding versions, what people, how they use it, the challenges. It's all good, but when we really do a migration project, first we need to understand, of course, what versions, what's going on with versions in your system. Has it been used a lot? Do you have those errors that I just mentioned? I know you need to make the right choices, right? So I know we have insights, of course, I know it. And we also use that to determine decisions around versioning, right?
Yeah, to visualize.
Yeah, so we visualize the data. So, and I'm sure, because I've asked you, that you have prepared something to show us. And then I need to give you the.
I think I can screen share it already. All right.
Yeah, I'll bring you on the screen.
Let me share it. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
I guess so. So that's, as you see, it's one of our dashboards of the Xero Insights. And this shows the versions of the demo data that I've created, which is, I'm going to show you first of all. That's an open text data of 41 different files that I created multiple versions for. You can see, for example, one image has 20 versions here, and they're all duplicates. So I just made it as a very easy. And based on that, we created a dashboard. It shows you I have 41 files, and in total I have 121 versions. And you can see in the graph chart below, amount of versions created over time and origin files. That's typical what we show to the clients to see how their data has been progressed, let's say.
Yeah, so you can find patterns in versioning, basically. If those lines,
if there's sudden versioning or not,
then maybe something happens, so you can dive into it. Yeah.
You can see per how many files there are that are original, how many of between 1 and 2 versions, between 2 and 5 versions, and so forth. So you can really dive into a specific category of versions, and then decide based on that from which version you want to say which do you want to migrate or not.
So here you see there are many documents with 1 version, and not so many with 2, and even but with 4 there again more.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are 2 more than
right. Yeah. And I guess you can click on these and then you actually see the document.
You can create reports based on the specific files from the export. Yeah, that's true. And I added 2 more pie charts that show us the number of versions and origin files in comparison. So you can see there yeah, twice as many versions than origin files almost, because we have 41 and 80. And if you look at it by size, you can see that the versions are 3/4 of the total size of the total files. So origin files is just 1/4. So let's say
Yeah, so if you then decide we're gonna only bring the last version, which is actually a typical migration rule, I think we see with our customers, then you know what you say in terms of
because then all the versions you can send to the archive.
Yeah.
So only for the hot storage you send the latest version.
Yeah.
And from then on you keep track with the newer revisions.
Or you just don't migrate them at all, maybe.
Exactly. Or
if that's the choice you can make.
Already see how much data you would save in comparison, right? So it was.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Interesting. I forgot to mention in the beginning, but if there are any questions, please ask them in the chat or any way you can in this webinar. I think it's the chat that we want to use. Feel free. Thanks. I see I'm not sharing my screen anymore. So let me put us back because I think we're gonna discuss a little bit still. Yeah, there's one thing I wanted to talk about with you. It also has to do with limitations, or not in SharePoint, but I know from my experience, and I think in many of these legacy systems, that there's specific metadata possible with versions. So a version can have certain metadata values, at least, and then the original document has changed in terms of metadata. How does that work with SharePoint? Can you talk about that? Do you know?
Yeah. So in SharePoint, when you create a new version of the file, all of the metadata attached to it's gonna be taken to the newer version, so you won't lose that metadata.
Right. And have we encountered so what would be solutions to deal with that?
I mean, when we migrated, let's say, from legacy systems and they have per different versions, different metadata, that might be a challenge. So you could decide to store all of this metadata in a hidden column.
Yeah.
That the user don't use, but you don't lose it. But then the question is, do you actually need it?
Yeah, that's the question. I can imagine that maybe for audit reasons or audit trail reasons that some organizations might need it, but indeed there's then always a solution to at least get it out and store it somewhere.
Or store them as separate documents in archive site.
Right.
All of their metadata.
And then a link to the original document.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's some other, I mean, we talked about another challenge with the renditions or different file formats. How do we typically solve that?
Yeah, so usually what happens is that let's say you have a Word document that used to be PDF file or vice versa. When you migrate to SharePoint, it will become 2 files, because if you upload as a version and you try to restore it, so from Word to PDF, that will break. It will not work. So then you have to make a choice to have multiple files, and then understand that that's going to happen. So it's going to be a different way of working for the users, right, as well.
Some guidance for the users, and you can put them in a folder.
Yeah.
Document set maybe. Okay.
Good.
Okay. Anything else you like to share about versions before we go back to the process?
Yeah, I think the most important is design session. So once you made the choice and you do the test migrations, it happens often that the clients made a choice, but then the users try to use it and they have different expectations. And based on that, we have to change the design as well and to redo the test migrations.
Right.
So it's very important to think well through way ahead and know what to expect.
Actually,
that saves a lot of time.
Yeah, and it ties back to one
stress,
of our key principles that you make the users part of your decision making and design as soon as possible, as from the start, basically.
Yeah, we usually
do the analysis.
Some key users.
Yeah, makes sense. And then, so actually, part of the migration design, you say, is also a strategy or a design around versions. They own a specific chapter in the document, basically.
So let's say if you want to migrate only a specific amount of versions or the last one, you would state it in the migration design plan as well. So it's set in stone, and once that's signed in, you cannot go back. And I mean, you could of course, but it will, put it.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's so many aspects in a migration that you don't think of when you just talk about a content migration, right? You think, hey, there's documents in one system, we need to move to another. But I mean, we can go on with Meet the Experts for another 50 weeks.
Yeah, for example, in some documents, you might have links to source system which won't work when you want to migrate.
Right.
That's another challenge.
Yeah. Oh, we can talk about that
specific
next month,
versions,
maybe. No, I already know the topic for next month, so we won't do that. We're going to talk about audit logs around the migration, which is also very interesting and very necessary. But now, back to the process around versions. So typical example, I think, which we luckily see a lot, is that they say, okay, it's at least for the old data. I know there were versions, but give us only or bring over only the latest version. So we save storage costs, we make it easy for users.
Especially because a lot of the changes are very minor.
Right.
So
and I mean, if it's already a final document, you might not need the history how it got to the document. You might, though. There definitely are situations where you would. But for this, we want to show you the migration tooling, and I'll have you explain. But I think the rule we set up is around not taking along the versions or taking only the latest. But you can explain.
Yeah.
And I'll give, or you can share, and I'll put you on the screen again.
So as we've seen before, that's our source system, and a lot of these files are versioned, as well as, I mean, kind of duplicated, to be honest, because I cheated. But that's another analysis for different subject duplicates, of course. And what we typically do, we have our tooling, Xilio 4, and we have different connectors that we use in migration. One is, for example, for extraction, first left, from the open text content system. And then we have also our target connectors for SharePoint Online, which we will use to import the data to SharePoint. And what we then do based on our decision to migrate only the latest version, for example, then we would create a mapping flow, as you see here. And then we would add specific small walkarounds to flag those latest versions. So once the mapping flow is run, it will to execute that.
Right. And just to take one step back, so what you see here is our low-code platform, which is used for migrations by us, by our partners, by some of our customers themselves. There's some great developments happening around that platform. We'll talk about that probably in another session, but we're gonna focus also on integration. But this is the platform, and this is what we use for migrations.
That's, for example, one of the flows. It looks kind of big, right? But it's actually just drag and drop of the components. And once you know how to use them and how to connect them together,
right,
then it's easy to use. And it's well documented, and it's very little of writing in code, like barely even.
Exactly.
Just setting the configurations, say username, password, and this kind of things.
Yeah, and if you go into that versioning transformation, then you'll see that that's a fixed, or not fixed, that's a pre-built component, right? That you can just use in your, if you're want to partner with us or use the software, then those components are in, and with the training you can use them to create your own version migration. And so, sorry, I saw you. We already saw that if you're using OpenText, one of our maybe it's the one system we migrated out of most. I think so, by the way.
Yeah.
So a good example. So what are we going to see in the demo? You're going to show an actual migration into SharePoint Online, which we do all the time, of course, but always good to see it.
Yeah, so I have the three different flows. So once we prepare it first, then we generate. Should I maybe open them one by one and explain a little bit? So first we prepare the metadata around the SharePoint target environment that we have to attach to every object.
Right.
And then we have a flow which generates the package, which we then send to the Azure storage.
Right, because we use the migration API, right? So
exactly, yeah.
if you don't, so these are pre-built, so you don't
pre-built.
have to,
You don't have to just change the configuration. And
exactly.
And then the last flow, it uploads it to the SharePoint.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's possible to also just connect them like that. I just click start, and it will trigger like a domino effect the next flow.
Right.
And then once that's completed, then it will be uploaded to the SharePoint. Yeah. So it's actually quite intuitive tooling. You can see this one is running, so I'm just gonna wait a little bit until it's done.
Okay.
And then we can view the SharePoint side. So as you see, all of them, are kind of new.
So these were just migrated. Okay.
Yeah. And for example, if we would compare one of the files that we selected with the 20 versions.
Yeah.
And we try to find it in our test environment that we just created. And we see that's only the latest version, which is then called 020, based on the metadata that we filled in. It's important.
Yeah. Okay. So you took only the latest versions.
Exactly.
Can I ask again if there are any questions? Now is the time. We're almost through. Okay. If there are no questions.
Yeah, I think what we also could add that often users create different documents that are actually versions of each other,
Right.
but they are not versioned in a proper way.
That's an interesting one.
Another solution would be to have duplicate analysis.
Yeah.
And based on that, you could also save a lot of space.
Yeah, definitely. And this is actually a very interesting one. And again, a different topic, but to use like to identify near duplicates and make some logic and use AI to stack them as versions. We already did that without real AI like 20 years ago. No, not 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And we use that, but it's getting better and better, of course, and you get higher percentages of actual versions and no false positives.
Yeah.
But that makes it interesting, especially file share migrations are something that's common. Good one. Do you have any other final great giveaways for our audience today?
I'm not sure. I would say, ask us any questions and we will come back to you with the answers. If you have any idea for new webinars that you're interested in,
that's a good one. So if you have a specific topic that you want to discuss, please also feel free to either share now in the chat or maybe later.
I think it's always a different perspective as a migration engineer other than client.
That is correct.
You want to see.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. We'll wait for that in our mail because I don't think there's anything coming in the chat. Everyone's preparing their Christmas dinner already.
Indeed.
And of course, it's close to Christmas, so probably a lot of people already off as well. So then I want to thank all the people that were in. I hope it was interesting for you and that you learned something. As Kamil said, if you still have a question, something pops in your mind, then please feel free to share. But if not, or anyway, I want to wish you all very happy holidays. And I hope to see you all next year with our next Meet the Experts session. And as I said, it's going to be audit trails, migration audit trails. So very interesting topic, very necessary, especially for all the regulatory environments that we migrate. that you are completely transparent and always aware of anything that happened from the document with the document from beginning to end when you migrate. It's key. It's part of our solution and approach, and we're happy to share more about that and to answer questions about that. But with that, let's wrap it up now. Thank you all, and see you next year. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye, guys.